I have the pleasure of introducing Jeffrey Harry for the session titled How Ted Lasso's Leadership Style Can Help You Build Psychological Safety. For additional information, please check the app. Now, please join me in welcoming Jeffrey.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. How are you? All right. Turn to your neighbor and give them a high five. You made it. You made it. There's been a lot of partying. There's been a lot of stuff going on. So the fact that you're here at 3:30 is a big deal. All right. So this is what we need to do. I'm a play guy. And you can't talk about play without first playing. So as I was mentioned, if you're sitting next to someone, go ahead, turn to that person. That's going to be your partner. Go ahead, recognize them. Hey, what's up? Nice to meet you. And then you should have a paper and pen. And if you don't, that's fine. Pull out your notes app. You can use your notes app. All right? But this is what we're going to do. We are going to, I'm going to give you 1 minute to draw your partner, starting right now. Draw your partner. Go ahead, draw them. That's right. What are you talking about? And if you're doing this virtually, same thing. Pull out your piece of paper and pen. You can draw me. You can draw me. Everyone's involved. Everyone's involved. So draw your partner as best as you can. No pressure. But you have 40 seconds. You got 40 seconds. Oh, you got them right in the front. All right, no pressure, but 30 seconds left. 30 seconds. By the way, you will be showing this to them. You will be showing it. Make sure to capture the ambiance, the essence, the color scheme, the vibe. We're down to 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6. I'm still watching you virtual. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, show it to each other. 1, 2, 3. Oh! Show it to me virtual. Show it on the camera. I'm looking. Oh, is that what you think of me? Oh my gosh. What is that? That's not me. What is happening? Oh, goodness. That looks accurate, Carly. All right, I'm going to give you another chance. I'll give you another chance. Yeah. Go ahead, flip your piece of paper over. Flip it over. Go ahead, turn to your partner. If you need to apologize, this would be the time. This would be the time to apologize. Like, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to draw. Okay. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, but you have to do it with your eyes closed. Same thing with the virtual. Same thing. Eyes closed. Make sure, again, capture the ambiance, the essence, the vibe. Yes, you're already starting. You might have already forgotten where your pen is. You're like, am I drawing eyebrows? I don't even know if I'm even on the pen. We're down to 10 seconds. Down to 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, 3, 2, 1, reveal. Oh, why are some of these better? Why are some of these better? Same thing, virtual. Is yours better? Is yours better than the first time? Why? Unbelievable. Oh my gosh. Okay. Go ahead and sign your name at the bottom like Picasso and hand it to them. If you get nothing else, you get a poorly drawn photo that can either go in the garbage or the refrigerator, whichever you feel compelled where it should go. Okay. And then be sure to high five your partner. High five them. Well done. Well done. Woo! All right, we're awake. All right, so that's the first reason why I do that. I do that to first wake you up. It's 3:30. You might be like, I don't even know if I should have come, right? You're like, what's happening? There's a guy with a Lego bow tie talking. I got to get here. So the play brings us present, right? But the second reason is to ask you this question. Which version did you judge yourself more with? Number 1, where you could see, or number 2, where you couldn't? How many for number 1? Even throw it in the chat, virtual. All right. And then how many for number 2? Okay, I'm like 3 people. Okay. I'm confused. I do this all the time. I travel everywhere, right? And I always ask this question. Most people pick number 1. You had more time. You could see. Why'd you judge yourself more? Just throw it out. Why? because I could see and I knew it was going horribly, right? You're like writing, you're like, this person's gonna fire me. I don't even work for them and they're gonna fire me, right? Right? And why not the second time? Why didn't you adjust the second time? You were like, this is not gonna go well. I'm just gonna let go of the results. And when you let go of the results, what actually happens, right? I talk a lot about how perfection is where burnout comes from, right? Perfection is built on ego, shame, constantly trying to be right. Play is built off of curiosity, a sense of wonder, a sense of awe. And what we need is we need you to be open to playing today. Because the more you're willing to play, the more you're willing to connect with one another, the more you're gonna actually get out of this. So are we down to play? All right. Now the other thing regarding perfection and play is it ties in with the idea of being curious, not judgmental. Right? So perfection is the judgmental part. Have you ever hung out with someone that's a perfectionist? Not fun, right? Just not a good time, right? But someone that's actually open to curiosity, sky's the limit. There's so much that can possibly happen. And then the third reason why I do this is because of this thing I refer to as attunement. It's the first way in which you ever played as a baby. So when your parent or guardian lifted you up and you locked eyes with them, it's one of the only times your brain waves actually match identically. And you feel seen, and you feel heard, and you feel appreciated, you feel valued, feel loved, right? All non-verbally. And then you search for that for the rest of your life. In your relationships, in your friendships, at work, right? You are constantly looking for that level of attunement where people just have that certain understanding. You feel it, right? You feel it when you're at a good organization. You feel it when you're at a good meeting. And the thing that I loved about the show, what I loved about Ted Lasso so much is there was constant playing. There was a constant attunement. He's playing here with the media, right? Trying to vibe with them. He's all constantly joking with them. He's playing with his team, constantly doing different play things to really understand them, right? And then they started playing. So they started modeling what he had to do. And then one of my favorite ways, and it was one of the first ways in the show that happened, was this is Rebecca. How many people are fans of Rebecca? Yeah, let's go, right? So Rebecca is AFC Richmond's president. You know, she owns the team. She's amazing. She gets the stuff done. And it was really hard for him to connect with her at the beginning. So then he found out she loved shortbread, and then he started bringing her shortbread every day. And that's how they actually attuned. That's how they actually connected. Now, I was sharing this story at another conference, and someone came up to me afterwards and was just like, you know what, this show's not realistic at all. And I was like, oh, yeah, go ahead. Why not? And he's like, there's no way Rebecca can have shortbread every day and have that figure. Like, that's just like, it's just not possible. And I was like, okay, that's cool, you know? So there's this constant level of attunement, right, that we're looking for. That's what actually builds psychological safety. So we've talked about attunement, so let's talk about not attuning. Let's go there. We're gonna have to go there. I wasn't planning on going here, but I gotta go here. Let's talk about it, right? Now, I love this show. This show's all about integrity. And it's tough, right? You know, when you get busted by an HR staff of 26,000 after calling in sick to work, right? So I didn't even know how I felt about this. So how many of you, when you found out, were disappointed? Raise your hand if you were disappointed. Okay. How many of you were angry? I mean, I have a talk about this, all right? I've been doing this for a year and a half. I've been building up to this. I have like a podcast. What would Ted Lasso do, right? So like, I was so disappointed. Where are my TED heads? Where are my TED heads at, right? Like committed. Like we were focused. We were driven. I got this shirt just for this, all right? And, okay, I gotta turn from this because that makes me angry. I gotta go back to this. So it was really tough. And I was just like, okay, what would Ted Lasso do? What would Ted Lasso do, right? Emphasis on Ted Lasso. And it was like, okay, how can I be curious at this moment, right? How can I not be judgmental? So I started talking to HR here, right? And I wanted to find out how y'all felt about this. And people fell into 3 different camps. There was the first camp that was like the justice warriors, right? They wanted like punishment, right? They wanted to shame. They're the ones that made this one, right? I talked to people that were like, I'm going to go to the game. I'm going to reprimand him right now. Like, and then there was the second group, and this is why I love HR, that was just like, maybe we should put him on a performance improvement plan. You know, he should, you know, a little PIP, you know, like you broke our trust. This is how you broke it, and this is how you'll build trust again with us, right? And then there was a third group that was just like, he can do whatever he wants, you know. You know, he doesn't owe me anything. Who's right? Out of those three, who's right? Exactly, right? It's psychological safety. It's the idea that we all our feelings are valid. All our feelings are valid. And I remember this quote from the third season that really resonated with me, where it says, I hope that either all of us or none of us are judged by the actions of our weakest moments, but rather by the strength we show when and if we're ever given a second chance. So just imagine if you did not judge people on their weakest moments. If you learn nothing else from this, right? If we just did that in our relationships, at work, what would change? What would be possible? So that was the first thing that kind of like really resonated with me. But then this morning, I changed my slides this morning, I remember this clip from, I think it might have been the third season. So this is Roy Kent. Any Roy Kent fans? All right. So for anyone that doesn't know who Roy is, and we'll go through the show in more detail, but Roy is angry. Roy, the facade of anger, but he's warm in the middle. He's just such a warm guy. He's a really nice guy, but he doesn't show it. And he used to be a phenomenal player. Now he's like retired, and he's the assistant manager for AFC Richmond in the third season. And he has to do a press conference. And it's one of his first press conferences, and he has to explain in this press conference why the captain of his team, Isaac, right before halftime, went into the stands and fought a fan. He has to explain this, right? And the press are like, do you condone this, Roy? Like, do you condone this type of behavior? And he goes, no frickin' way. And you know, this guy swears, so I'm not gonna swear, but this is basically, you can fill in what he was saying, right? He's like, no freaking way. And then they asked him, so why'd he do it? Why'd he do it? And Roy like leaned back and he said, you know, when I first started in the league, I played for Sunderland, which is a smaller team. And there was this veteran player on the team, such a nice guy. And he was about to have his baby. He'd been talking about it for months. And me being a cocky rookie, I decided to make a joke. So we're all at the pitch, we're all practicing, and he said, well, I said, statistically, that baby's probably mine. And the team laughed, but this guy went ballistic, and he beat me up proper. Like, he gave me 4 stitches, black eye, 3 broken ribs. I was out for 6 games. And this veteran player got kicked off the team. And no other team would touch him. And when I healed, I bumped into him at a pub. And I used that opportunity to basically say, I'm sorry for my stupid joke. And he told me that a month prior to that incident, his wife and him had lost the baby. And he hadn't told a soul. And he's like, you know, we think because we buy tickets that we can say whatever we want to players, right? And, you know, we're human beings too. And I don't justify what he did. I don't justify his choice. But I show him love. I choose to show him love. So I'm choosing to show grace and love to Jason because I still love the show. I still like it, right? And you can choose whatever way, but that's my vibe, right? All right? So now we've addressed that. Now we can move on. All right. Woo. Okay. So I used to do a podcast called What Would Ted Lasso Do? And who hasn't seen the show? Raise your hand if you haven't seen the show. What are you doing with your lives? What is happening? It's happening. You can watch it in a week. Come on, people. Okay, so for people that have not watched the show, and Ted heads, correct me if I'm wrong, so there's two ways in which to describe the show. It's a show about a American football coach that goes to England to coach European football, the top league in the world, and he has no idea what he's doing. But another way in which to describe the show is what happens when you take the most optimistic person and put them in one of the most toxic situations. And the reason why the show probably was so popular during the pandemic is because that's us. Hey, right? That's us in our settings, right? Dealing with the fact that we have to navigate such a crazy world back then, right? So that's why so many people resonated with it. So what I want to cover today is I'm going to cover 4 different things. We're going to talk about defining psychological safety in play, and then we're going to play a little bit. Then we're going to talk about how to build psychological safety immediately, like what can you do right now, right? And then we're going to talk about what does equity in action actually look like, because you can't build psychological safety if you're not looking at equity. And then lastly, psychological safety in action. So I don't want to do this talk if we're not going to do something about it. I don't want y'all to write all these things down, go back home and just forget what we did, right? I'd rather you email me and be like, it didn't work. Great. At least you tried it. That's the whole point of play, is a curiosity, a sense of wonder, a sense of awe. How are you trying this out? How are you failing and then showing up again? How are you failing and showing up again, right? So that's the vibe that we're trying to go for. So how I define psychological safety is a place where people feel seen, appreciated, and heard. Seen, do you see me as a human being? Not just a cog in the machine, you can use me, right? Appreciated, are you paying me well? Are you compensating me? Do I feel recognized? Heard, when I share something with you, does it fall into a black hole never to be seen again, or do you actually address it? So I'm gonna be asking a bunch of questions worth asking, and the first question worth asking is, when have you felt seen, heard, and appreciated at work? What does that feel like for you, right? And then the flip side of that then is, when have you not felt seen, heard, and appreciated? And what did you do? Did it happen at a meeting and you were like, I'm on Indeed tonight, just scrolling, I'm on Indeed right now in the meeting. Like, I'm gonna start looking for jobs right now. Like, what is happening in that moment? To have that conversation with your staff and then with your leadership, are they doing this? That's the first question worth asking, right? Because the reality right now, and some of y'all might have recognized this, office, anyone, office space, yes, right? The vibe, especially when I'm talking to Gen Z, the vibe right now is that work sucks, okay? And I'm not talking about like it sucks like it usually sucks. No, like coming out of the pandemic, it really sucks. Like it is rough out there. And as I traveled around the country and other parts like in Canada and stuff, I would ask people, why do they not like work right now? And these are the main answers. So people feel disrespected. Employees feel disrespected. And I show this picture specifically because there's a story, and it's a company that you use, but I'm not gonna tell you which one. And the guy had been working there for 15 years. He shows up at 4 a.m. to get some work done. He uses his fob key and it doesn't work. And that's how he found out he got laid off. And that's how 1,000 of his other friends got laid off. No goodbye party, no email to say anyone, just gone, right? So they feel really disrespected. Second, they feel really used. There's another company, not gonna say the name again, but there's another company, when they reached $10 billion in sales, did they give their staff raises? Did they give their staff bonuses? No, they gave them cookies. And when they did, they sent them out late so they were stale. So everyone got a stale cookie that said 10B on it, right? That's how they recognized them for all the hard work that they had been doing, okay? So there's this vibe that is feeling, right? Now, I'm sure some of y'all have been told, we need to be more productive. You know, raise your hand if you've heard either we need to be more productive or we need to do more with less. How many of you heard of that? We need to do more with less. We got to be more productive, all right? So I want you to just turn to your neighbor and say, you are productive enough. Just tell them you are productive. You are productive. Same thing in the virtual way. You are productive enough. Productive enough. Why would I say that? Why would I say that? What justification do I have for that, right? Productivity pay gap. Between 1979 and 2022, we are 64.7% more productive. And we are getting paid only 14.8% for that. So people feel robbed. They feel The game is rigged. That is how it's going for a lot of people. It may not be going in your organization, but that's the vibe that I've been getting from people, right? As to why they think work sucks. So the second question then worth asking is, what do your actions say about your values? Are you the $10 billion cookie company? Or are you Spanx? Anyone wear Spanx? Maybe I'm wearing Spanx right now, right? Right? The Spanx CEO surprises every employee with 2 first-class tickets and 10 grand when they went public. I don't know, right? Some people are like, why is my company not doing that? I don't know anything about that company besides this, and I already know they care. I already have gotten that vibe, right? I know there's a difference between Costco and Walmart and how they treat their staff, right? Like, you know that. So for you, what do your actions say about the values of your organization? I'm not talking about those posters on the wall with the eagle and leadership. I have a theory, the more of those posters you have, the more toxic the place is, okay? Like, why do you have so many posters? Like, do you need reminders about integrity, right? Like, what's going on, okay? So that's the second question worth asking. And the reality is, like, it doesn't have to suck. It really doesn't. And there's just small things we can do that can create psychological safety immediately. And I'm going to throw out one of them. It might not be, the most popular, but we have to get to that. So let's talk about this person. Oh, goodness. Okay. So for anyone that doesn't know, this is Rupert. He's the evil character. He used to own the team, and now he owns another team, and he wants to destroy Rebecca and destroy the whole team, right? And he's one of those people that would say, nobody wants to work anymore. Nobody wants to work anymore. And the reality is like, no, it's not that. Nobody wants to work for you, right? Nobody wants to work for you. And that is the vibe with a lot of people, right? That's the feeling. Like, right now, how much innovation do you think is coming out of Twitter, right? I'm not even mentioning what the name is now. I don't even understand the name now. But, right, it's not a safe place. It's not a psychologically safe space, so there's no innovation, no creativity. People feel scared. Many of the other organizations this person also runs also have that same vibe. So it's a strategy, and some people believe in that strategy. I just don't. I don't think you can build psychological safety when you're using fear as your driver. So you got to ask yourself, where does my organization stand? And what do my actions say? I'm not the values on the wall. What are the actions on a regular basis communicating how my organization cares about my staff? That is crucial, okay? So marketing does not focus on HR, or marketing does not focus on humans. Sales does not focus on humans. Finance does not focus on humans. We're the only department that's devoted to human beings, yet we're told we can't be human a lot of the time, right? That we can't have empathy. Now, here's a question I have for you. Is HR a revenue-generating department? No. Okay. Is HR a profit-saving department? You need to be advocating for yourself that way, because think about how much money you have saved them, right? How many lawsuits, right? How many bosses have you stopped from saying that horrible thing that would get half the people to quit? And you're like, maybe I'll say it. Maybe you don't need to say it, right? Like, how many of you saved your organization during the pandemic when they were like, what should we do? And you're like, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I guess now I have to figure it out, right? We need to be advocating for ourselves. We need to be looking out for one another. So go ahead and turn to each other and be like, you are a badass. You are amazing. You are amazing. We need to be advocating, because marketing is marketing, sales is selling. They're always telling everyone else how great they are. We are not doing that. We're the humble ones in the corner, and we got to be advocating for ourselves. So I talk a lot about this. John Amici is an NBA player, or a former NBA player, and he talks about how work culture is defined by the worst behavior tolerated. So if you wanted to change your culture in just one thing, just be like, what's the worst behavior we're tolerating? Can we solve that? Changes the whole culture right there. So what was interesting is, and I'm going to show some of my favorite people, is, again, we have Rebecca, the AFC Richmond. How many people are fans of Higgins? Yeah, okay, we got some Higgins fans. So Higgins is the right-hand person, always taking chaos and creating order. And then Keely, who are fans of Keely? All right? So Keely is the PR person. A lot of times she's all about connecting. She's all about getting buy-in. right? And I said earlier, work culture is defined by the worst behavior tolerated. So as soon as Rebecca joined the team, she fired the coach. She fired this guy and replaced him with Ted. And the reason why she fired him was just like, no one likes you. Like, you're not enjoyable to hang out with. You're not a good leader. We were 3-11. Like, you're just here. So my question to you, and this is not a fun question, but my question to you is, which managers should not be leading people at your organization? Let's talk, right? Let's be honest. Who are in positions of power that should not be, right? That we promoted 5 years ago and we know they are not the best, right? Maybe they don't like people, right? Maybe they are just not good motivators. Maybe they're better as individual contributors. But what are they doing? Why is Chad in that position? What is happening? And if there's a Chad in the audience, I apologize, not you, Chad, another Chad. But why is Chad there, right? So we have to be really honest about that. And I'm not trying to shame anyone by talking about this because this is happening everywhere. Nearly all bosses are accidental with no formal training, and research shows it's leading in 1 in 3 workers to quit. What do they mean by nearly all bosses? 82%. 82% of bosses are not trained. They're just people that were like, do you breathe? Okay, you get promoted. You're already here. Let's go. Who's next, right? So 82% of people that are in leadership positions are not trained, and when you ask them, what's the thing you hate most about your job? And they're like, training. I don't like training. So you have managers that need to get better, and a lot of them don't. So you have to decide, okay, who is salvageable? Who is someone that still wants to be a manager because they want to be a leader, right? Not just a manager, right? Who wants to get better? And then who is not in the right position? Maybe they stay in the organization, or maybe they got to go, right? But if you answered that, that would change the whole safety component. At an organization we used to be at, we let go of 1 toxic person. It got 3 other toxic people to quit immediately because they were like, "Oh, we're not doing that anymore. Oh, we're not tolerating that." So set the tone. If you set the tone, magical things can happen. All right. We've talked a lot, but now let's get into some connection, right? So feeling seen. Do you see me as a human being, right? So let's talk about play. Play is any joyful act that has no specific purpose or result. It's where you forget about time, where you're fully immersed in the moment, where you're fully in flow, right? Play is also the opposite of perfection, right? I talked about perfection before, while play is rooted in curiosity, awe, and a sense of wonder. So what I want you to do is this. So we're gonna do a little experiment in a moment. And the whole thing about this experiment is tapping into how do we make our place the most fun? Because if you think of your industry, what is the organization in your industry that is having the most fun, that is taking the big risks, that is being the most innovative? Because that is where people want to go. You want to figure out recruitment? Right there. That's how it can actually happen, right? Amazon back in 1998 was the place to be because they were solving the most interesting issues in the tech world. Everyone wanted to be there. And then he became Lex Luthor. And now it's not the place that people are vibing as much with. So you have to figure out what is the way in which we are building more fun actually into the workplace. And frankly, AFC Richmond was the place to be for a lot of people. That's why they started being able to recruit better players. I believe right here they're dancing to Taylor Swift. Okay, so like they're always playing, they're always having fun. So what we want to explore right now is just impact for you. What is your why? Why are you at the organization that you're at? So I'm going to ask you a few questions. So here's my first question. Oh yeah, let me get to this and then I'll come back to that. I want you to explore how many people's lives have you impacted in a positive way in the last year, counting this year and last year. And there's 2 ways to answer this. You can either answer it number of people, how many people I've recruited, how many people I've mentored, how many people we've hired, or write down names of people. But I want you to just think about that for a moment. And while you're thinking about that, and feel free to write it down if you want to remember it, because even if you write down the names, it'd be cool to reach out to the people you had a huge impact on a long time ago. This is AFC Richmond's fan base. They changed the culture of the community. There were a lot of people that believed what was possible because of them. In 3 weeks, I am going to Wrexham because I want to see what has happened in the last 3 or 4 years since Ryan Reynolds invested all this money into Wrexham, because the city has changed. Realistically, the city has changed. And I talked to someone that was at a rival city, and they were like, Wrexham sucks, right? And they were like, not anymore. A bunch of Americans are going there. So like, there's a ripple effect that can actually happen. It's the same thing that can happen at your organization. You've already had that ripple effect. So how many people's lives have you impacted in a positive way? So I want you to just think about that, okay? And then the next question, it's more of like, imagine this, is I want you, in a moment, is to think of your most memorable and meaningful moment in the last year where you impacted someone in a positive way. But before you think of that moment, I just want you to look at this photo. So this is a very crucial moment in the first season of the show. It's where Ted is having a panic attack. And people that have had panic attacks talk about how this is one of the most accurate perceptions of panic attacks. And Rebecca is doing a grounding exercise to actually calm him down. And it's a really poignant moment where they actually started to connect, because Ted was always this happy guy. And then they had just, I believe, had a huge success. They had tied a team that they should not have tied, and they're hanging out at karaoke, and then all of a sudden he has this panic attack, and he has to go outside, and she helps him, right? That was her impactful moment with him. So what is that impactful moment for you? Think of your most memorable and meaningful moment in the last year where you impacted someone in a positive way, where you felt most connected to this work. Why are you still here? That moment. You got it? All right. So then I want you to turn to a neighbor, and then I want you to share that moment. Now, we don't have a lot of time. So if someone's like, when I was a kid, you're like, hold on. It's 1 minute each, but I want you to share with someone else, because I want to see, we're going to talk about why we're going to do that in a moment. So go ahead and find a partner, and then go ahead and share. And virtual, then I want you to type in the chat your moment. And be sure to celebrate each other as you're sharing your moment. I will give you 2 minutes starting now. And then virtual, write in the chat, what is your moment? And then I want you to praise each other during that moment. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I see you, virtual. So go ahead, write it in the chat. Make sure to share. See where there's commonalities. Connect with one another. This is your opportunity. I hope you can connect with each other. Share each other's LinkedIn as well. Be sure to connect. But share that moment. Spend some time writing down that moment. All right? All right, about 60 more seconds. If you haven't switched, start switching. What was that magical moment? All right, begin to wrap up. Finish up that story. You're like, I just started. I need more time. Okay, start to wrap up, and go ahead and thank your partner. Go ahead and thank your partner. Some of you are like, I don't have enough time. I was about to start. You're at 3. My goodness. All right. Go ahead and thank your partner. Give them a high five. Give them the high five in virtual. Give the virtual a high five in the chat. Okay. How many of you, as you were sharing your story or listening to someone else's, you were like, I want to work there. Like that's, right? Like, that's a good job. That sounds like a fun place, right? There's something about why are we not doing this during recruitment? You know, why are we not doing this during onboarding? Why are we not doing this during performance evaluations? Why do we not know people's why? And why do we not know someone's why who's been here for a really long time? Because maybe it was a certain way, but now it's changed, right? Why are we not sharing more of these stories? There is, should I share it? I might as well. There is, which one? Yeah, Fairmont. So I work with Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco. It's a phenomenal hotel. And there's a guy named Mel. He's a chef. And we did this exercise. And we asked around afterwards, like, what's a story that you heard that you feel people need to hear? And everyone pointed to Mel. And Mel's shy. He was like, I don't want to share. But they were like, come on, Mel, share. And he was like, all right, I'll share. And he mentioned that 6 months before, someone had come to the Fairmont Hotel and said, my dad is terminally ill. And one of his favorite meals happened in this hotel. And he wants you to make it before he passes away. And nobody in the whole hotel knew that story until that moment. There are stories like that at every single one of your organizations, right? That root us to the values of the organization as well as the values to us. So that is why it's important. Also from a positive psychology standpoint, what actually happens when you share stories? You're building psychological safety because you're conjuring up a certain level of dopamine. Not that fake dopamine when you're doom scrolling, right? Like real dopamine, right? When someone's giving you a compliment, or you're eating really good Pequod's pizza. I hope you had that while you were here, right? And then also oxytocin. You get a certain amount of oxytocin when you give someone a compliment. When you're getting a compliment, it's the same feeling you get when you're hugging a baby, right? Or hanging out with a pet. Now, part of the reason why I also wanted to do it a little bit in silence is because we're conjuring up a certain level of serotonin. You get this when you're meditating. You get this when you're in flow, when you're running. And then finally, some of you had like some funny stories, right? So anytime you get someone to laugh, you are literally taking pain away. If you get in a meeting, you get people to laugh, you're taking pain away. Another way in which to take pain away is to cancel meetings. I don't know if you've heard about this amazing thing, which is less meetings. But yes, I mean, goodness, why are they 60 minutes? It could be 22 minutes, please. All right, let's figure that out. My TED Talk on meetings. Okay, so this is what's actually happening. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, a dose. You're building psychological safety when you share these stories. So take the time to do this. Find the moments to do this, right? To figure out why people are still at your organization. Okay? Now, feeling appreciated. Let's get to feeling appreciated. So, there are all these amazing characters in Ted Lasso. Everyone has a different personality. I have broken it down into 4. There's so many more. But I want you to pick one. Now, most of you are going to see this and you're like, I'm everyone. I'm complex. I'm an amazing human being. Yes, you are. And I need you to pick one. All right? Can you just pick one? So I'm going to throw up 4 different personalities of people, and I want you to choose one. Which is the one that resonates with you most? All right? I'll go through these quick. So we have Rebecca. She's the boss archetype. Logical reasoning, delegates authority well, gifted at problem solving, fast, right? We got to make decisions. The boss archetype. Then you have her right-hand person, Higgins, loves to take chaos and turn it into order. Very dependable, very practical, right? Gifted at details. Then you got Ted. He is an innovator. He has so many ideas, horrible at details, but so many ideas, sees the big picture, right? And then lastly, you have the nurturer. You have Keely. She's all about getting buy-in. She's all about creating harmony. She's all about prioritizing feelings. So again, let's just quickly, boss archetype, get stuff done, coordinator, chaos to order, innovator, so many ideas, horrible at details, nurturer, gets buy-in, cares most about people, prioritizing people, all right? So if we had time, we would actually move into different parts of the room that logistically can't work. So, but what I want you to do is I want you to pick one and then give me a thumbs up when you got your one. Everyone? Okay, everyone's got it? Okay, so then let's do this in like groups of 3. We'll do it in groups of 3 if we can. I want you to answer each of these questions. I'm going to throw up a question, and I'm only going to give you a minute because we don't have that much time, but I'm going to give you a minute to discuss the question. So the first question, what I want you to break up in your group of 3, is I want you to answer why you chose that archetype. Out of all of them, why do you choose that one? And then make sure everyone shares, and I'll give you about a minute to do that. Ready, set, go. All right? And then virtual, I want you to write your archetype in the chat. Write your archetype in the chat and why. Why did you choose that one? What's that specific reason for that? What is it about that specific one? Well. Make sure to express virtual in the chat your reasoning why, and then also validate other people's, recognize other people's. Oh, that resonates with me. Oh, that's why I understand that. So make sure to write that. Connect with each other. We're still having that conversation. All right. Okay, about 15 more seconds to share. We have other questions? But 15 more seconds, almost wrap up. You still got 10 seconds. Okay, all right, so that's the first question. That's the first question. We'll get back to our groups. But now let me ask them. Now I'm going to ask you the second question, right? So the first question was what resonated with you about that archetype? Why? Why did you choose that out of all of them? But then I want you to ask this question. What are the strengths you feel are not appreciated about, why is your archetype not appreciated? So an example would be innovators are like, we have so many ideas. I don't think people realize how many amazing ideas we have. People should appreciate all this. It's so hard for me to come up with these ideas, right? So what is it that you feel other archetypes don't appreciate about your specific one? And I'll give you about a minute for that. Go ahead. They don't feel appreciated by you. Same thing, virtual. What are the strengths you don't feel are appreciated by the opposite archetypes? What is that? What don't they like? Or do they don't think is so amazing about you, but it's very valuable. It's very valuable to the organization. Write those in the chat. All right, about 15 seconds. 15 seconds. Okay, all right, begin to wrap up. We have one more question I'm going to throw out to you in a moment. But let's first try to build some empathy. Okay, so let's see who's in the audience, all right? So I'm going to shout out yours and then give a little woo if it's you, okay? All right, so where are my nurturers at? Where are my nurturers? Okay, love the nerd. They're out here, all right. Where are the coordinators, the organizers? Very organized. It's a very organized one. All right, where are my innovators? Yeah, of course you're in the front. All right. Like I have ideas. Get me on stage. I got many ideas. All right, where are my bosses? Oh, there they are. Firm out there. Okay, so there's a reason why it's set up this way. So if we're in the room, some of the people have actually done this. When you're in this room, usually if we're spread out in this order, diagonal is your opposite. So nurturers are opposite of bosses, coordinators are opposite of innovators. You feel that, right? You already feel that. So let's build a little bit of empathy for each other. I'm just going to give you an example, and then we're going to actually talk about it together, right? So, okay, let's figure out how we can have empathy for each other. So innovators, all right. So coordinators, here you can have empathy for us. So innovators, we have so many ideas. So many ideas. A lot of them that we came up with 5 minutes ago, okay? We just made them up. But we're so excited. So we run up to you to ask. We're like, I got this idea. And they're like, another idea? Is this different from the 8 ideas you gave me yesterday? And you're, yeah. But this one's better, right? So we're giving so many ideas. And what we need from you is we need you to just celebrate with us. Just allow us to be excited. When you ask us questions, it feels like you're saying no. It feels like you're like, that's not a good idea, right? So that's where we need some empathy. We need you to just be excited. Just let us have our moment, okay? Innovators. We've got to slow down on the ideas, man. Like, what are we doing, right? And when we show up, we have to be ready to have questions asked to us. And if they're asking questions, they're not saying no, there probably are, but they're not, but there's this vibe, right, where they have to take our chaotic idea and convert it into guidelines. They have to figure out if it's even legal, right? They need to take the chaos that we're coming with and create all of this order around this, right? So we have to have a certain level of empathy because we're giving them the ideas and they have to do all this other stuff just to make it safe so they could be pulled off. So that's how we both can have empathy for each other. All right, nurturers and bosses. Bosses, oh mercy, bosses. Bosses, okay. So the way, bosses, you also have a lot of ideas, right? And when you go up to nurturers, you are like, hey, we gotta get it done, we gotta get it done. Nurturers need to get buy-in, right? So they need to take your idea, sometimes it's not the best idea, and they need to sell it to these people. They need to figure out how to make it so that it sounds good, right? They need to find that ability to figure that out, right? And they need time. They need buy-in time. So if you could give them some patience while they're trying to get buy-in, that would help out tremendously. Okay, nurturers, how much buy-in do you need? How much time are we talking? A year, 2 years, 6 months? Like, what are we doing? Bosses are getting pressure all the time to get stuff done within a week or yesterday, right? So we need to figure out a timeline that you can possibly give them so that they know what to do, right? Because they recognize you need to get buy-in, but they can't give you all the time in the world. So those are just examples of having empathy. So then the final question for y'all to figure out is I want you to tell each other, what are the strengths that you appreciate about the opposite archetype? Why do you appreciate that part of them? And then if you have time, and maybe I'll give you a little bit more, figure out what can we do to communicate better with each other? I know we work totally differently, but how do I make sure you feel seen, heard, and appreciated? And how can you do that for me? I want you to figure that out with your group. All right? I'll give you about a minute and 90 seconds to figure that out. Ready, set, go. Same thing for you in the chat, virtual. What are the strengths you appreciate about the opposite archetype, and how can you work better with them? Write that in. How can you work better with them? Try to find the differences. What do you appreciate about the differences of each other? Because we need them all. We need all 4. So figure that out, virtual, and write that in the chat. How can you be more open to each other? I'll give you about 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds. Find the differences. How can we work better with one another? How can we work better? Even though we're different, how can we work better? 15 more seconds. Final 15. Okay, all right, begin to wrap up, begin to wrap up. Thank each other. Give each other one last high five. One last high five. Well done. Same thing in the chat virtual. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So there's so many of these like personality things. You can do the things with the colors that we've done before. There's many of things, but the whole point of this is how do we make sure that everyone feels recognized? Because you can't do it alone, right? And I think when we hire too many innovators, nothing gets done, right? Or if we hire too many bosses, there's no one to tell what to do. You got to do it yourself, right? So we need everybody. And another way in which to flip this, and this is where we're going to get into the feeling heard, and this is the last part, is trying to figure out traits. What traits does your team currently have? Maybe you care a ton about profitability. Maybe you care a ton about logic and reasoning. Maybe you're very competitive internally, right? So the question worth asking then is, what traits are you missing from your team right now? How much are you focused on sustainability, us lasting a long time? How much are we cultivating emotional intelligence? How much are we allowing people to follow their intuition? How much are we focused on coaching rather than commanding and controlling people, right? Because when you do the reveal of this, you find that we both need masculine leadership and feminine leadership traits. And this is not just talking about gender. Whether you identify as, a man, a woman, non-binary, this is about style of leadership. And right now, in many organizations, we skew towards one side. And you probably know for yourself what that is for you, right? We're so far one way, that's why it's so imbalanced. That's why work sucks for so many people. They don't feel seen, heard, and appreciated because there's not enough EQ in the room. There's not enough focused on people. So how do we actually cultivate more of that? All right? So lastly, about feeling heard, we need to talk briefly about equity. Why is belonging and equity so important? Because it creates the greatest ideas and fosters the best talent. Do I have time? I think I have time. I'm going to do it. All right. So I had a friend named Natalie, was an engineer, biomedical engineer, would go to all these organizations, mostly male-dominated. No one ever listened to any of her ideas. She was about to quit the industry. She went to one last organization. They said they were hiring her because they wanted a different perspective. She was in her first meeting. They're trying to figure out an aortic stent. They can't figure out how to create this new one. And they turn to Natalie and they're like, what do you think? And she's like, oh, you found, okay, all right, we're doing this? All right, great. And she looks at it and she goes, oh, why don't you use the design of a scrunchie? And all these dudes was like, what's a scrunchie? What's that? And she had to pull one out of her bag and it got passed around the room, multi-million-dollar contract. Almost $1 billion for that. Perspective, it's diversity of perspective. It's diversity of experience, right? We're not checking off a box only, right? We are actually recognizing how are we celebrating different perspectives. Because when you find someone, and especially when you think of who's the most vulnerable person in the room, right? Who's the one that is least listened to, that person might change the entire organization. This is Nate. He watered the field. That was his only job. He was a kit man at the beginning. And this is a moment where he is finally being promoted to a manager, assistant manager. He was one of the most strategic managers they had ever had at AFC Richmond. How would they have been able to find that? Because they created belonging and equity so that he felt comfortable enough to share, and we found someone magical. That's what's possible, right? So we have to be exploring equity as an action that creates real belonging. I'm not talking about equality. A lot of Elon Musk, a lot of people talking about equality. Get everyone the same thing. No. Get everyone what they need in order to do their best work, right? So a great example, or the question worth asking right now, is where does your team stand when it comes to equity? Let's give the example of women in leadership positions, right? There's an inequity scale, and then there's the equity scale. So inequity, active participation. We don't need women. We're good. This is great right now, right? Denying and ignoring. We had a woman once. She came by. There was someone. She was in the room, right? Recognition, no action. Ooh, that's a good point. We should have more women. And they just walk away, right? They don't even acknowledge. Recognition, action. We hired Susie. That's good enough, right? We got Susie. Still all on the inequity scale. Equity, educating yourself. How are we building relationships with colleges so we can cultivate a channel through Society of Women Engineers or the MBA programs? Educating others. What are you doing to actually build relationships? Supporting and encouraging. How are we investing in ERGs, women-led ERGs, so we can cultivate leadership from the ground up, right? And then initiating and preventing, right? How are we stopping, like, listen, you're hiring a bunch of bosses or a bunch of innovators, but you're not recognizing all the other people that are needed here. So find out, where are you on the inequity equity scale? Okay, lastly, let's just recap all the questions. So if there's a slide to take a photo of, this would be the slide. So let me just bring it all up and then I'll share with you. This would be the one. So again, when have you felt seen, heard, and appreciated? What does your org's action say about your values, right? 10B, Spanx, that was the difference. Which manager should not be leading people? Let's talk about that. Just that, oh my goodness, right? What is your staff zone of genius? So zone of genius, I talked about this a little bit, is regarding play, right? Exploring your why. Are we helping people actually explore the work that they love to do most? What leadership traits are you currently missing? Masculine, feminine leadership traits. And lastly, where does your team stand when it comes to equity? Got photos of this? We're good? All right. This is it. This is the moment. Like, we were never going to get another chance like this moment coming out of a pandemic, where you decide where we're going. Every decision you make, from hiring, from the meeting where you're like, I don't know if I should say this, say it, right? Will decide the future of work. Are we going back to the past? Old school leadership, hierarchy, patriarchy, individualism, competition, ego? Or are we finally willing to embrace human-centered leadership? Shared humanity, compassion, empathy, having grace for people, recognizing and not judging them based off their weakest moments, but recognizing them for their most powerful moments. How do we make sure people feel seen, heard, and appreciated? You do that, and you have psychological safety. That's my time, everybody. Feel free to scan this. Let's stay connected. And thanks so much.